So the other day, as I was using my chosen LLM, for those of you who don't know what an LLM is, it's a large language model, AI, something you use to query or work a problem out or talk with or ask a question to or have it produce a spreadsheet, whatever you need, right? Um, and for those of you who listen to my podcast or watch my YouTube channel, often you know I talk about AI from time to time. I did a video on it a while back, and I'm the kind of a person I'm not necessarily like yay like AI. I'm also not like no AI. I use it for where it's useful in my life. I don't use it for things that I want to preserve the skill with or that I don't need it for. And yeah, I generally think of it as a tool, and that it can go either way. It can be used for great things or not so great things. With that said, I do think there are some challenges with anything this sort of powerful as a new technology. But either way, this is not a video on AI. I just wanted to introduce the setting of where I started thinking about our topic today. So I was kind of messing around, asking a question with the AI I like to use, and the output of what it was saying. There was a particular dharma thing, I don't remember exactly, but the output was incredibly sharp, and for the purpose of what I was talking about, it was pretty accurate, and it was really talking about very what we consider to be kind of pinnacle teachings in Buddhism, more coming from Vajrayana or Buddhist Tantra. And as I was kind of reading it, I was thinking, wow, I mean, the information here is so clean and clear, it's sharp, it can be much more eloquent than I can most of the time. And yet, where's the relationship? Where is the juice? Where is the, I don't know, transmission element, right? And this is where I started, again, this is one of my concerns about AI in Buddhism. I have many, and I also think it can help a lot with study and information and stuff. But one of the concerns in particular I have is more related to, topics and practices and how the Dharma works in the Vajrayana tradition. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Vajrayana Buddhism, I'm not going to give a big introduction to it, but basically it's teachings of the Buddha. It's a vehicle of Buddhism that relies on very swift methods for attaining awakening. And these methods in Western thought, they've often been described as more esoteric. And I try to not use that word, but I'll just frame it that way. And I think they've been thought of as more esoteric just because the science of them is not understood, and it's not a science that is really, you don't really see in the West, and you haven't seen it in Western history. Of course, this science crosses over into Hindu Tantra and other forms of Tantra throughout the world as well. And it's a science of understanding the mind and body on a very deep and subtle level. And then techniques and ways of working with that in order to bring about liberation and enlightenment on the Buddhist path, or whatever path people are working with. So either way, I think I sometimes call these things like the new shiny rock on the block, or the new shiny car or house. A lot of people get attracted to, the highest teachings of Buddhism, like Dzogchen or Mahamudra or things like that, for good reason. I get it. Often the teachings, they have very good marketing. They claim to be very swift. They claim to be very simple, and you don't have to go through a lot of rigor. But that's not the complete truth. Often people who are serious Mahamudra and Dzogchen practitioners have gone through a lot of study and practice and training. And pretty much everyone I know who's a serious practitioner in Vajrayana, they've not only gone through a lot of training and study of general Buddhism, what we call Sutrayana Buddhism and other forms, and they've done a lot of retreats and have a very extensive daily practice and things like that. They also have a lot of teachers, or just a teacher, but they have another person in a human body who is at a higher level of attainment than they are, right? And this is what I was referring to as relationship. And so it got me thinking that one of the things I see more and more is people see kind of like when they get into spiritual practices, they want the shiny thing, not realizing it's not the shiny thing. It actually comes through relationship. It doesn't come through information. So even though, whatever, pick your AI poison, whatever LLM you use, whatever AI you use can churn out amazing stuff. It can, mimic Longchenpa, Milarepa, whoever, right? And churn out amazing information. And that information sometimes can be incorrect, but sometimes it can be correct and quite good. But it's just information. It's not transmitting anything, right? At least not in this moment, at least not from my opinion and experience. And the same when we, listen to a podcast, watch a YouTube, I would argue even read a book, These are all ways to engage in understanding, but they're not transmission. They're not exchange. And so relationship is really the doorway to these practices and these teachings. And I know that's not like an answer a lot of people want to hear, because often in Western culture, especially modern Western culture, we really value our autonomy and we really value our individualism. And a threat to that autonomy is that someone's saying you need someone else in order to get there or get it or whatever. And I can empathize with that. I can see how people would reach that conclusion. But what if it's the other way around? What if by being more autonomous, we cut ourselves off from the actual juice of something, the actual, genuine experience that these practices and teachings reveal? So it's almost like we have to ask the next question: is autonomy and like I can do it all by myself? Is that really is that really how it is? Would be one question. The other is sort of like, will that even work? Again, I warn you, this is a little bit of a rant. But that's to say, for me personally, I haven't found that to work. And then for me, there's been the hard work of working in the relationship with another human being. In this case, like a Vajrayana teacher, a guru. I know that's a dirty word these days. I don't know how. It just literally means someone who's like weighted or has a lot of depth of understanding and realization of something. But either way, a teacher, whatever you want to say, a guide, someone who knows that terrain, and not only knows it, it's not just information they impart transmission through their being because they've transformed themselves, which I would say is the most important thing. But either way, so we have that kind of relationship. We also have relationship through Sangha, through our Vajra brothers and sisters, the ones we've taken transmissions with, the ones who are doing practices similar to us. We have, we work through our own process, the alchemy of transforming ourselves from a sentient being into a Buddha. We work through that through Sangha, through, with teachers, with Sangha, with, of course, the everyday people in our life, etc. And so more and more, and I think you get where I'm going. You could apply this not just to Vajrayana Buddhism. You could apply this to anything. Everything happens through relationship, actually. And when we're denying that, we're cutting off a huge part of our learning, a huge part of our growth and development. I would argue in anything, right? So, but especially in Vajrayana Buddhism, it's like that is the key to everything. That is the key that unlocks everything. But again, there's challenges there. People see sort of hierarchy, and sort of guru worship and all that stuff. That's all noise. That's not really what's at the essence of the way in of the practices, right? Of course, on the outside, it might look like that. Sometimes, of course, there's like cultural forms that just look really foreign or look like sort of, someone's on a throne and someone's bowing to them. That just can look awkward to a Westerner. But either way, we have to understand what's happening, what's the intention of that, what's happening in the practice in that moment, right, for that person. And that doesn't mean everyone does that, right? There's a reason a lot of teachers have warned about things like spiritual materialism, because they are really easy distractions, right? And so, of course, we can take a relationship with a so-called guru in a spiritual materialist way. But if we study the Dharma, there's less likelihood that'll happen. And then we use that relationship instead as a way to nurture and uncover our Buddha nature. A really good Vajrayana teacher, really their sole purpose and their sole wish is to help the student to do that, to uncover their Buddha nature. But there's a bravery in a genuine Vajrayana teacher because they show their Buddha nature a little bit more to that student maybe than others. And I don't know. It's hard to say like whether they're doing that deliberately or not. Maybe it's just on display for all beings to see, if the person has realization, or all beings to connect with. But maybe the student, has the opportunity to see, how do you say it? Maybe just kind of attuned to that, right? Either way, I think what I'm basically sharing is it's a very intimate relationship, not intimate in the normal sense of how we think of it. We might not see our teacher, we might see them every 5 years, but it's very intimate because it's in our practice every day. There's a connection, and that connection is helping our Buddha nature to come out more and more, our awakened nature, essentially. And again, does that mean that we are giving up our agency to another person? No, not at all. Actually, that would be the opposite. That would be more the spiritual materialist side. It just means we are open to relationship, that we cannot do anything on our own, and that's okay. It doesn't make us weaker for that reason. It actually makes us stronger because that's how the universe actually functions. It functions in interdependence. It functions on relationships, right? So I remember early on, reading a lot, like stories of Milarepa and all these incredible practitioners who went into like caves in the Himalayas and became enlightened. And my sort of Western values at the time were flavoring how I was seeing that, because I was seeing that as a person cutting themselves off from the world and being alone and sort of accomplishing, enlightenment alone. When in fact, if you actually resolve that lens a little bit, that sort of modern Western value, which is false, then you actually see when you read the biography of Milarepa, etc., there's lots of relationship happening. I mean, the most, just him and Marpa, his main teacher. I mean, the relationship is incredible, the intimacy. Not in the same, like a very difficult intimacy, very challenging in the beginning for Milarepa. And then throughout his life, there's all kinds of relationship happening with his students and with people he meets along the way and who meet him. So that's just to say, a lot of how our current lens and or vantage point will color these things. And so my plea is to sort of look at that lens a little bit if you have it, or if you suspect you have it. Because if you really want to go into the so-called esoteric practices of Buddhism, it's all about relationship. That's the key, right? The techniques, the information, believe it or not, that's the easy part. I mean, of course, another challenging part is just practicing. Like practice it takes a lot of diligence, right, and time. So of course that's challenging, and that's implied. But the information, the techniques, it's just like, I don't know. I see them proliferating more and more out there, and in one way I'm happy because more and more teachings are reaching people, and maybe some people it just sparks them into a lifelong journey that's quite transformative. I'm happy for that. But at the same time, I also see a lot of spiritual materialism of just sort of like, oh, shiny rock, do that for a while. Oh, didn't work. Next shiny rock. And why didn't it work, right? Because perhaps we were just seeking the information and technique. We weren't actually seeking the relationship. So, rant over. I appreciate you listening through this rant, if it was helpful. Just something I thought to share just because it was on my mind the other day. And sort of the information thing is just going to become hyper speed because we're all going to get, I don't know, everything in the world will be at our fingertips, and we'll have basically a PhD you converse with in AI on any topic. That's going to get really boring for some of us who like practicing Dharma at some point, because nobody can replicate the process for you. We have to do the process, right? And that includes relationship with other people, including teachers and stuff. So anyways, let me know what you think of this. As always, you can push back if you want. It's not like I'm right necessarily, just sharing my experience over the years with these things. And feel free to reach out at scotttusa.com, or if you are watching on YouTube, please leave a comment. And I wish you all the best in, whatever, wherever your journey takes you. And I hope this can help you in your thought process about that. Okay. Thanks so much.